So I guess I'll start things off by just welcoming YouTube chat and everyone here for this interview. I am Sai. I am a high-end sort of Raider and Mythic Plus player, and I'm here joined today, very luckily, to be joined by Dylan Barker, the lead encounter designer for Dungeons, Raids, Delves, and Noah Smith, who's a game designer working on the Prey system, which will be a new feature in Midnight. So we're gonna get into all the good juice stuff today. Dylan, do you want to? I'd appreciate if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself again. That'd be great. I mean, obviously, anything else that you want to add from what I've just mentioned.
Yeah, I'm Dylan Barker, as you mentioned. I'm one of the encounter leads on mainline WoW. Right now, I'm working a lot on delves, but I've done dungeons, raids, outdoor zones across almost 11 years at the company. No?
Yeah, my name's Noah. I'm future owner of Prey. I've been at the company pushing about 4 years now. Done a lot of work on Ringing Deeps in 11.0. Done a lot of work on lore walking, and now we're making Prey for everyone on Midnight.
Amazing. I think you're what 1 year away from getting your sword, aren't you? Your Blizzard
Oh,
sword.
who's counting? But yes.
Well, amazing. So, I am somebody who, like I say, am pushing high-end content, but I'm also very aware of the different types of players that we have in this game, and that different features and different parts of the content are gonna attract different players. So I want to keep this interview very grounded, but also we can push into any sort of echelon that you want to go into. But I guess I'll start things off with the prey system. So can you explain a little bit about how you expect players to interact with the prey system? Is this something that you anticipate that every player is going to interact with this at some level, or is it going to be more so just for certain individuals?
That's a great question. Short answer is yes. In so much as we are going to offer Prey to everyone. We're going to say, hey, you've hit max level. Here's the tutorial. Go check this system out. We've designed Prey as an overlay system, so it's really meant to complement things that most players will want to be doing in the outdoor world anyway. You're going to want to be doing your world quests. You're going to want to be doing your capstones. You're going to want to be, farming rares and treasures. And we're basically saying like, Praise a system you can opt in to do while doing any of that loop. Now, that being said, there is an element of friction inherent in the feature. Getting ambushed in the open world isn't really for everyone. So we've kind of addressed that by building out the difficulty levels of the feature. Once again, it's an opt-in feature, but even within the tentpole of the feature itself, you can opt into higher difficulties. So really what we're saying is we're not putting any player power behind it. We're not saying you have to absolutely grind out the maximum number of prey hunts you can per week. But if you really want to optimize your outdoor gameplay, or if you want more challenge, or if you like some of the rewards we're offering, we're very much trying to incentivize it rather than mandate it.
Excellent. Kind of similar to delves, where it's sort of not, oh, I've got to do my 8 delves this week. It's I feel like going and doing a delve. I'm on my lunch break and whatnot. I wanna add some stuff into my gameplay. So that's great. The in the Q&A yesterday, it was mentioned that prey will actually affect the whole zone that you're questing in, and I think you kind of just referred to it there as well. What is the
Mhm.
impact on this? Like, is this going to elevate your quest? Is this going to give you better quest rewards as well? And is this going to be similar to the Legion Remix scaling world content feature that'll be coming in that?
That's a great question. I can answer that in kind of two parts. The first part is, once again, we didn't want anyone to ever feel like, oh, I have to do prey. It's a Tuesday. I gotta go get my hunts. Then, like, we also didn't want it to feel like it was the most optimal way to say do a world quest. It shouldn't feel bad in Midnight if, like, you just want to jump to Zulaman, do a quick world quest. You shouldn't have to be like, I did that and I wasn't in a prey hunt. That's lack of efficiency or something. We didn't want to kind of engender that kind of feels bad. So while you can do normal world quests while doing prey, you will effectively be achieving two things at the same time rather than emphasizing the rewards of any single thing. We're not giving any additional rewards for, say, doing a normal world quest while in a prey hunt. The efficiency there is that you can do both at the same time, and you are getting both the reward of a world quest, of a normal world quest, while also progressing an active prey hunt. We're also building 3 new world quests that are going to go in each zone to make sure that you always have enough world quests up at any time to really engender that sense of I'm going out and I'm interacting with the feature. In respect to the second part of that question, with the kind of how this impacts the open world and other players, our big kind of mandate for Prey was this is a feature grounded in the open world. Like, this is the world of Warcraft being a character front and center, and we really, as wonderful as delves are, and as how compelling as that loop is, we really wanted to take player out of instances. There's not a single loading screen in any of the Prey feature. You are just in the open world end to end. We have a little bit of controls in the higher difficulties for some of the final boss fights. I can let Dylan talk about that more later, just to make sure that the challenge is commensurate with the reward, and that the skill expression is still possible for high skill players to really kind of demonstrate mastery of the system. But that being said, Prey is very much localized on the player. So if I'm doing a Prey hunt, a nightmare Prey hunt, and you are not in, you're not interacting with the feature whatsoever, and we're standing right next to each other, you should not experience any detrimental effects. Now, that being said, you can help me, you can jump on, you can tag the creature that's ambushing me. In higher difficulties, we're a little bit more restrictive into how much and how far you can take that assistance. But our general kind of idea here was to be multiplayer forward, keep the world open, but also make sure that if you don't want to touch the system at all, you're not getting, you're not catching strays from the insane troll that's chasing, someone who's standing 5 feet away from you.
I think that could be a great piece of content for people out in the world questing, and then suddenly they just happen upon somebody who's just fighting for their life in a duel, in a nightmare duel, and you can get this sort of arena sense where people can gather and watch people tussle it out. So that's great. I wanted to ask this, like, I guess my final Prey question: is there a plan for this to continue being relevant at max level? I know it was said in the Q&A that this is going to contribute partly to your weekly vault, and then as well, I guess the two-part to this is there anything else in Prey that you're super excited about or really want to communicate to the wider player base about the system that hasn't been touched on yet?
Thank you. Like, two great questions. For the first one, yes, this is designed very much as a max level feature. It's going to unlock when you hit max back in Silver Moon City. And we really kind of, once again, we'll be kind of pushing you to the hub. We'll be tutorializing the feature. And then after that point, we're saying, hey, if you like what you see, great, jump in. And if not, you're welcome to go into delves, go into dungeons, however you want to play at the max level. Prey isn't really, pulling you in any one direction. It will be Warband unlocked. So we are currently kind of, exploring the extent to which maybe normal mode can be open to leveling alts after the fact. There's a lot of tuning on the back end that we're kind of still figuring out what we want to look like. But it is very much a max level feature. In terms of actual gear affordance and reward, yes, it will contribute to the Outdoor Great Vault slot. We're looking right now at kind of awarding up to hero, depending on the wrapper and the cadence. And you can expect to get, if you are an outdoor player in the outdoor world, this should be a viable gearing route that that complements instead of replacing the delve route. Like, the idea here is, I just did, all of my bountiful delves. I'm a little bit delved out. What if I did some world quests, but in a context that was challenging and kind of immersive in a way that maybe, I would like, because I just spent the last 6 hours, grinding T8 bountifuls or whatever. In so much as something that I'm excited about the feature, as an overlay system, it does make the world meaningfully different. The gameplay feel of the outdoor space changes so much with the Prey system, and we are kind of leaning into some kind of emergent gameplay here. Like, we currently plan to have it, you can do Prey while in war mode. You can, like, there are so many crazy things that the ambush mechanic and all of the Prey mechanics kind of create in terms of situations in the outdoor world. It really is, it really feels like we're not, second screening your world quests. You actually have to lock in and think about what you're doing in the middle of an expansion zone, and that just makes the whole world feel so much more alive.
You know what you need to do is put the Prey system in Mythic rating. So mid-boss, you're like,
oh yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry, I gotta go deal with this guy real quick. I'll be back to go and explode a mechanic on top of you guys in a few seconds.
That'll end very well. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, that's great to hear a bunch of stuff about the Prey system there. I want to now jump into more of the raid features and just raid discussions. So thanks for going through a lot of that, Noah. And obviously, if there's anything you need to jump in as well, go ahead. But Dylan, I think there's probably going to be a lot more of your remit now with the raiding stuff. So how do you expect guilds to actually schedule around 3 different raid tiers? is there a expected clear speed? Do you expect people to deal with one raid before the release of another on the various difficulties? Do you expect guilds will be extending on some bosses, like extending the lockout on some bosses while they're still progressing the other raids? So how is cutting edge going to work, Hall of Fame? I know this is like a heavy question, but I think it's some stuff that you can just like blast off maybe.
Sure. So I guess speaking to like the broadest audience, folks who are like very good at the game, playing into heroic, maybe they dabble in mythic, but not like the super high end where things kind of get crazy. Um, the top half of some of the first stuff to release is going to feel a lot like some of the subsequent content for the first slate of raids. I think as far as how we expect players to engage with it, like it's going to be at everyone's own speed. I have definitely at different points played with groups that will go in and just kick stuff over, and we expect everything to be dead before the next stuff is out. I don't know that that's going to be reality for everybody, but it's not like an intentional tuning thing where it's like we want to make this so nasty that people are not ready for the next one. Again, it's going to be raid by raid.
Okay, no, that's great. Yeah, so you don't. It's not like you're kind of leaving it up to the player, full free reign on choice and how they want to go through that. Okay, great.
And I want to just like call out too, a lot of it's story driven. It's a kind of a cool opportunity with us doing a couple of different locales and like having the story of the expansion unfold across different spaces with the different bosses to kill, as opposed to having it all in the same space. So it's going to be an interesting feel because it's just something we haven't done in a while, and I hope it feels novel and cool to players.
Yeah, I did definitely manage to see some spoilers in the dungeon journal for some of the upcoming bosses. So beware, viewers. Be careful on if you do too much delving into that. So we have a lot of spec and class changes coming in Midnight. They're changing, or you guys are changing how like healers are going to be working as well, and how damage is going to be going out. There's a lot of changes that are coming with how the specs are playing, and in many ways they're being simplified. Is this going to be reflected in the raid content, Mythic Plus content, etc., where you're going to lean into maybe more advanced mechanics or allow you to just experiment with new mechanics that maybe we wouldn't previously have gotten with really in-depth rotations and difficult to pull off like rotations and stuff?
I think one of the best lenses for a question like this is just estimating cognitive load for players in each audience. And I think you can see as a direction we're trying to lessen some of the cognitive load across the game. I think the way that specs will play in 12 is something that I can't speak super elegantly to. That's not my full-time job. I would totally expect that if it follows how we're doing on the encounter side, we're looking to make things more clear and understandable in the game world so that you are reacting more to the behavior of your allies and the behavior of mobs as is visible in the combat space. I think in some cases that's going to feel like simplification, and in other cases it's going to be the same feel but presented in a better way, given another layer of attention to detail on this is what we're expecting you to do. You have or have not done it right. This is why you did die, and that sort of feel.
Yeah, so are you going to be experimenting with boss visuals, sound cues, that kind of thing? Kind of like Dimensius, right, where he lifts his arms up and you got to be watching that while still fighting the rest of the boss, that kind of thing?
Yeah, and I mean, you can go back even to like Croesus, which was I'm forgetting the raid. It was
In
Suramar
Legion?
raid. Yeah,
Yeah.
smashing the bridge, right? Like this is one of the quintessential like encounter designers love it when you say look at the fist of the thing and then go to the other side. Doing that at like Stormwind scale with Dimensius was really sick. Anytime we can get players looking at the boss, at the beautiful art that our art teams help us with, and we sort of bring to life through combat, like that's the best. So doing that with Dimensius was really sick. We want to do that as much as is possible. And there are some bosses where, yeah, we really have the time and space and the fantasy to do that. And then there are other bosses where we maybe need to be a little bit gamier, and we're kind of fine with a ratio there. I think that the key here is that, especially in a world where combat enhancing add-ons are going to be diminished, how are we as encounter designers responsible for portraying the information that we intend players to have, such that when they're engaging with the content, they know what's expected of them, and if they die, they know why they died.
Yeah, so improvements in clarity and stuff when with the removal of, or diminishing of some of the add-ons. Yeah, I think a lot of people in general right now. Obviously, this is it's a new experience for everyone seeing the simplification of a lot of specs and classes, and I think a lot of people are looking at that with everything else remaining as it has been. But I guess encounter design is going to change to reflect that. We've seen people losing some, like, removal of some interrupts, removal of some defensive capabilities, more choice now with healers on what cooldowns they want to select for various encounters. Do you think that people need to see some of these encounters before they rush to like judge some of the class stuff? Because these things are in tandem, they are symbiotic, I think, in design. And I guess leading into that, is there going to be a bit of an overlap period where maybe mechanically things are a little bit more simple because you're giving people time to adjust to reduction in combat add-ons, different like complete overhauls on a lot of specs and that kind of thing? Or are you just going to jump straight in with some mean mechanics?
So I think maybe redefining what mean looks like is going to be an interesting choice, because we've discussed a lot of our approach for encounters in terms of mechanics being strength based. Let's say that's throughput, gear optimization, etc. Intellect based, which is like I give you a puzzle and you have to coordinate your way out of it as a group, and then dexterity based, which is like I'm going to shoot a bunch of swirls at your feet, I expect you to dance properly. And over the years, we've trended more and more toward that action gamey, dexterity based gameplay. And it's partially because the intellect stuff is solved pretty well by add-ons. I think we're going to start to be able to do things where we give you a puzzle, and the way the puzzle itself gets harder or easier is how we can tune that encounter, because it's not just solved anymore by an add-on telling you go here because you were picked for this. Instead, you will be picked for it, and we'll have to provide you the right amount of time to solve the puzzle as a group, but it won't just be something automatically playing matchmaker. So something which, let's say Fractalus from the recent raid, like the weak auras going into that really solved a lot of the coordination puzzle. But in a world where the pieces are in play for you to sort of look at the state of the walls and determine between yourself and your allies where you want to go, is kind of a fun challenge to play out in the world on your voice chat and etc. That's kind of how I'm looking at it.
Yeah, okay. No, that's great to know. Do you feel so do you see an issue internally with there being I guess like a non-global raid release? Do you think that there's anything that needs to be solved there, or are you kind of happy with different regions having different release timetables for raids?
That's not something I've got a great insight into.
Okay.
I wish I did. As a content person, I help make baddies to have players attack. That's it.
Okay. No, yeah, fair enough, fair enough. I thought I'd just be cheeky and sneak that one in, maybe. So jumping into dungeons, because I know that we've got about 10 minutes left or so. So how happy are the Warcraft team with the reception of Mythic Plus in the War Within? There's been a lot of changes there. We had the resilient system come in. We've had a lot of reduction in affixes and I guess more consistent displaying of affixes. Like you have the Xalatath one each week. You can get used to that. Is there any plans to elevate or modify Mythic Plus in any significant way in Midnight, or are we going to have a lot of what we've had in the War Within?
So my understanding, I guess I should say first, we're pretty pleased with how Mythic Plus feels right now. I know playing it, like I'm pretty satisfied. So I am but one small sliver of the audience. I'm definitely not at the top end. As far as plans going forward, I think we're largely looking to improve on issues of clarity, on the way that it feels to pull trash, especially with abilities that go from this is trivial to this is the thing which is going to kill all of us. Um, Beyond that, systemically, I think it's TBD, and I'm probably not best to speak on it. But as far as the actual construction of dungeons, which is a big focus of mine, I'm looking at how do we present a clear challenge with trash mobs such that you understand this is the one I want to avoid, this is the one that needs to be single target kick lockdown, and then we're not just sort of presenting a challenge which invites you to make such a big pile of that that everything becomes indistinguishable.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and I mean, you've said about being more related to the actual design of the dungeons and mobs and things. Do you have plans to look at random damage that isn't well telegraphed? You know, random shots, pot shot, these kinds of abilities, dynamite in Floodgate, where you as a player go, I was 100% HP, I was fine, and then what happened? Like, there was no real way for me to anticipate that, and a lot of people say get the weak aura, but I don't think that's a great solution. And then obviously in Midnight, that's probably going to be less of a solution available. So, do you are you going to be addressing any of that at all?
Yeah, making things more telegraphed and inviting the counterplay, I think, is really important. And obviously, as you've said, like having a weak aura tell you about this invisible thing, which because of your key level has now become extremely deadly, like we have to make that thing visible. Part of how we're making stuff visible is maybe we're not doing less than we did before in Trash, but what we are doing is making every piece more aware of the real estate it's occupying. So when you pull 4 or 6 mobs, the number of cast bars in those pulls will be somewhat reduced by comparison to past experiences. But it's not because we've taken a ton of abilities out, it's because some things are just allowed to have their effect immediately. Instead of having a creature do a cast bar to buff itself, it just buffs itself, but the buff might be purgeable, right? Instead of having something where it's going to do a cast bar and then it's going to apply a big dot, it just applies the dot, but the dot is dispellable. Things that sort of remove cast bars out of the space such that the creature that's casting the fireball that in a 6 is not a big deal, but in a 14 becomes a very big deal, now that cast bar can stand out a little bit better. I know that's kind of maybe a subtle, like inside baseball way to explain that kind of change, but I think for folks playing a lot of Mythic Plus, it will feel more obvious that, oh, the two things with cast bars in this pack are the things that have to get kicked. It is totally clear. That's the goal, and I'm certain that if something crops up where we've missed their feedback will let us know, and we can address it.
Yeah, great. I think so. This maybe doesn't cover encounter design per se, but what challenges do you face in designing some of these systems? As you mentioned, something that in a +6 doesn't really do much, but in a 14 kills you and becomes paramount to deal with. How are you, like, what challenges do you face trying to design a system that tailors to people who are just interested in gearing from Mythic Plus and those that are trying to push high end? Because to be honest, you get a lot of high, I'm in the high end Mythic Plus community, and you get a lot of people like, wow, we need to change this dungeon because on a 20 it's really tough. And I'm like, there are 4 of us that are doing this dungeon. It's like, how much is Blizzard gonna supply resources to something that doesn't affect that many people? Whereas at the lower end, it affects a lot of people. So what are the challenges in designing in these spaces?
The biggest challenge is making sure that the system is inviting at the lower end. It's kind of stressful trying to get groups. It's stressful once you get in, making sure that you're performing well enough that folks around you are feeling good and enjoying the content and the run. At the high end, I think you get into situations where people there are so smart and so organized and so in depth that they're going to push themselves as close to the limit as possible. And as you start to do that, you're pushing the game to its limits in really impressive and creative and fun ways. At that point, there are things that we've done that maybe don't necessarily come from intent so much as players have revealed an interaction. There are some things that when we see it, it's like, okay, yeah, that feels awful to ask people to do. We'd like to change that. But it turns out a lot of great Mythic Plus gameplay comes from just building a really solid dungeon up front, making sure that for folks who are learning by playing rather than learning by playing a ton and reading and studying, that they can play the experience, and then just sort of seeing what the best players in the world do when confronted with that scaled up mathematically to the nines.
Yeah. Okay. Great. I'll finish up quickly here on dungeons so I can get onto a couple minutes on delves, and then we'll wrap things up.
Mhm.
Would you have anything to comment on in terms of amplifying Mythic Plus rewards? It does feel kind of crummy when you do time a key and you get like 100 gold, and you see your buddy over there got the best in slot trinket. Is there any plans to increase those rewards in any way?
Not really a rewards person, unfortunately.
Okay, yeah,
So
sorry, yeah, trying to jump in on like stuff
yeah.
related to dungeons, but yeah, no, fair enough. I guess one last question then about dungeons is, Quick Shot in Floodgate is an ability
Mhm.
that doesn't seem to target the same person twice, and that helps give people time to deal with that heavy hit. That seems like the only thing in the game that really works that way. Is that something that you've specifically coded, and is that a piece of technology that you will apply to other types of mobs where you won't get multi-targeted from different abilities? Or like, what's kind of the background on that?
Hmm. It's one technique among many that we can use to mitigate that sort of alpha strike accidental, we hit you with six things at the same time problem. I think in general, as we are testing, we're looking for situations where something like that happens and we go, well, that sucked. And when that happens, either internally, hopefully before it goes live, or right after it goes live, and we're playing on live, or we're hearing from players on live that a specific interaction is bad, we'll usually look to touch something up.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Right. So jumping on to Delves then. First of all, I just want to say thanks to you and the team for creating the Bran appearance toy, which has been haunting my raid nights since its conception. So with one expansion of delving out of the way, how did the team feel internally about the success of Delves, and what improvements do you want to make going forward? Any big plans to switch things up in any way?
I think we've been, as a team, building up to doing something like Delves for several expansions. And I think a lot of players have felt that. The content side of Delves has a lot of room to grow because they're really fun to make. They're
Hmm.
not a competitive feature, so we get to be a little bit sillier and more creative and then allow players to tell us what they do and don't like. I know in the bigger talk yesterday, Paul Cubitt mentioned that we're not doing an underwater delve, which is, maybe because players didn't love them so much. So that's kind of a small piece. I think for a more ambitious piece, we're looking at making sure that more specs feel like they can delve on the spec they want to delve on.
Mhm.
We're trying to do that at first through Valeera and making sure that Valeera's abilities cover more of sort of the capability pie than Brand's did. So, for instance, if you're playing a holy priest, you probably never die, but your run is probably very slow if you've picked tank Bran. The hope is that we'll have some abilities with tank Valeera to sort of cover bases for classes that just for one reason or another lack some capacity, and it makes delving particularly awkward for them. So that's probably, I think, my biggest focus is just making sure that more people can do that on a spec that they are personally attached to.
Okay, so will that be sort of you're going to look at the abilities and the gameplay of Valeera to complement the player? Yes.
Yeah, in addition to perhaps some more general tuning of the experience. Ultimately, I think the frustrating part of delving, especially once you get past an 8 and you're sort of on item level for it as opposed to well in excess of it, is just I get clubbed by a lot of auto attacks, and that's just the thing that kills me.
Yes.
And making sure that there are appealing ways for every spec to use Valeera and work with that is a big goal.
Okay, that was going to be my last question anyway, which was going to talk about a lot of feedback I see online from people in Delves is just getting auto attacked to death, and yeah, plans for I guess more mechanic involvement and stuff. But you've answered that there. So we are out of time. I could talk to you guys all day. I appreciate that, Noah. I know that Dylan got the lion's share of the questions there, but it was roughly even based on the subject matters. Really just want to give you guys a big thank you, and I appreciate you giving me your time, and good luck on midnight. I guess before we go, is there anything that you just want to like sign off that you're excited for people to test on midnight, and then we can wrap things up?
Enjoy some spectacular dungeons. Ready for them.
Yeah, when Prey comes out, brace yourselves. Give us all the feedback. Sai, this has been awesome. Thank you so much.
It's amazing. Really appreciate you guys. Thank you.